Hi, my name is Terry. I have 3 college degrees, including a master's degree from an Ivy League university. I'm fluent in 2 languages, and I have a commercial driver's license, which allows me to operate heavy trucks, and I still can't find a job. My girlfriend's been working at a fast food restaurant for the past 9 years, but what she really wants to do is become an elementary school teacher. So every day I'm going to be coming on here and telling you guys stories about things that I think are interesting or cool, and then I'm going to teach you a little bit of Spanish until I can earn enough money to send my girl to teaching school. So today we're continuing our series on all of the U.S. presidents and the impact that they had on shaping the United States. We start with the 11th president, James K. Polk, who was known for massive territorial expansion, acquiring California, Nevada, and Utah after the Mexican-American War, as well as Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. This made the U.S. a continental state, meaning that it owned territory from the Pacific to the Atlantic Oceans, or from sea to shining sea. This created chaos because people couldn't decide whether these new states would be slave or free, adding fuel to the fire, which led to the Civil War. The Mexican-American War, which happened under his leadership, proved to be a training ground for the generals who fought in the Civil War, including Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant. The next president, Zachary Taylor, was another big war guy. Like Washington, he gained popularity through prowess in battle. His death was sudden and mysterious. Only 16 months into his presidency, it was a hot July 4th at an Independence Day celebration, and he was seen eating loads of cherries and iced milk. 5 days later, he was dead. The official story is that he died of indigestion, but he made enemies among his party, and many believe that his death was not of natural causes. The 13th president is Millard Fillmore. He is known as the Compromiser. He himself was against the expansion of slavery, but he was just trying to make everybody happy. He was the original people pleaser. He signed a compromise that would give the new states added by Polk the right to choose if they wanted to be slave states or free states. And to appease the slavers in the South, he enforced the Fugitive Slave Act, which increased penalties for runaway slaves when captured, as well as those who had helped them. Abolitionists thought that he went too far, and slavers didn't think he went far enough. This made him unpopular with both, and ultimately cost him his re-election. Franklin Pierce won his election on November 2nd, 1852. But his 11-year-old son died in a tragic train derailment just 2 months later, and 2 months after that, he took office. His wife was so distraught she didn't even show up for his inauguration. With all the chaos caused by the presidents before him, the country was spiraling rapidly towards civil war. But he was so depressed, he was powerless to stop it. James Buchanan presided over the Dred Scott decision, which declared that black people were not citizens, and Congress had no power to ban slavery in the territories. This enraged abolitionists in the North and ultimately set the stage for the election of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was handed a nation in shambles when he took office, but he expertly navigated the bloodiest conflict ever fought on U.S. soil. His primary goal was initially not to end slavery, but rather to preserve the Union. He convinced the border states that did not secede, to side with the Union, and he issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. Then he fought tirelessly for the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery permanently. For cleaning up the mess made for him by previous presidents and for preserving the Union, he is widely known by historians as the most skillful president ever. He was the first confirmed presidential assassination, making him a martyr for the Union. And after the Civil War, the big question on everyone's minds was, how do we bring the southern states back into the Union? The 17th President, Andrew Johnson, didn't want to be too punitive, instead favoring a lenient approach, allowing Southern leaders who had turned on America to maintain much of their power unchecked. This led to the institution of black codes, which were laws passed in the South to severely restrict the freedoms of black people, coming as close as they legally could to re-enslavement. He was also the first president to be impeached, escaping removal by just 1 vote in the Senate. He purchased Alaska from Russia, and at the time he was laughed at because this purchase was called Johnson's Icebox. But now it is seen as a political victory because of all the gold and oil that was found there. His last and greatest accomplishment he was actually against, but it happened during his presidency, so it technically counts as an achievement. And this was the 14th Amendment, which states that all people born in the United States are citizens. This included former slaves, and this amendment forms the basis of almost all modern civil rights cases today. The next president is Ulysses S. Grant. Funny enough, his middle name doesn't even start with S. It was a clerical error on a legal document, but he and his soldiers thought it was hilarious, so he just rolled with it. His actual name was Hiram Ulysses Grant. Grant was a war hero and the first person with the rank of general to serve as president since George Washington. As president, he used the Department of Justice to take on the Ku Klux Klan and dismantled them in the South. He is recognized as a massive civil rights champion for fighting to protect the rights of newly freed slaves. The next president was Rutherford B. Hayes, and his election was maybe the most controversial in U.S. history. It was so contentious that it almost caused a second civil war. See, Hayes was running against Samuel Tilden, and he won by just one electoral college vote. He didn't even win the popular vote, and 3 southern states disputed their results. A special commission was formed to try to resolve this without violence. Eventually, they reached a compromise. Hayes would become president, but in exchange, he had to remove all federal troops from the South. While this prevented bloodshed, it left newly freed slaves in the South with no federal protections, ultimately leading to the era of Jim Crow laws. His wife Lucy was the first lady to hold a college degree. The last president we're going to talk about today had probably the craziest story yet. He didn't even want to be president and was chosen entirely by accident. His party was trying to decide who to elect as their nominee. It was between James Blaine and Ulysses S. Grant for a 3rd term. The problem was they were locked in a dead split right down the middle. Garfield had been there that day to give a speech for his friend. And the party leaders were so irritated and tired of arguing about this that they were like, "What about that guy over there? Let's just nominate him." So they did. Garfield was reportedly completely bewildered and confused by this, saying, I am sorry that this happened." But he was actually a pretty decent president for the short time that he served. He proved that the president had the right to appoint his cabinet picks, not Congress. And he launched a major investigation into a massive corruption ring that was operating within the Postal Service. His death was even stranger than his election. He was shot in a train station by a deranged man who believed that Garfield owed him a job. Miraculously, the bullet missed any vital organs, but doctors who didn't accept germ theory repeatedly poked their unwashed fingers into the wound trying to find the bullet. And you know what happened after that. Alexander Graham Bell even came to the White House with one of his new inventions, a primitive metal detector, to try and help find the bullet. The gadget actually functioned properly, but he was lying on a mattress with metal springs, so it didn't help. He died after 80 days of agonizing infection. So, tomorrow we're going to be moving on to the next 10 presidents in U.S. history, but the Spanish I'm going to be teaching you today is "Este era un circo con muchos payasos." Este era un circo con muchos payasos. And what that means is, this was a circus with many clowns. If you like this video or you learned something new, drop me a like down below. If you'd like to see me cover a specific topic, leave a comment. And if you'd like to support this work that I do, there will be a link to the Cash App in the description box below. We'll see you tomorrow.